Hello everyone. So here is Moonlight Soul and Marissa from Growing the Flow, and we bring into you the special edition Stars and Cards 41, which is all about eclipses. We only have two year for those. So this is a special eclipse edition for September. So we're gonna dive into these energies and everything else that's come through. So welcome, Marissa. It's lovely to see you.
You too. I'm glad that we were able to make it happen and get together and kind of just there's been so much. I mean, it's crazy to think that we're at this place where we're winding down one season and stepping into a new one with September's energy and then eclipses, equinox, all the things. So I'm very curious to see what comes up for us today.
Me too, because I mean, we recording this in this last day of August, and what a month it's been. I mean, it feels like really like Lee Harris, our favorite spiritual teacher, said that it's gonna be 2 months in one. Same for September, so let's see how that's gonna play out. But yeah, it feels like in one way for me personally the longest month of the year so far. But it feels like we really been jumping timelines this month. I don't know, obviously, how it felt for other people, but the time really is passing in a very weird way now.
Agreed. Yeah, I said that to someone. I was like, it's the longest, shortest summer ever, And I know depending on like where you are in the world and what's changing seasonally for you, a lot of people we always have our back to school type energies this time of year where there is just, and I think just Virgo season alone is just creating this sense of a change on the horizon and a page turning that we start to look at everything that brought us here and then where to from this point, and that's where there's this just strange way of time, the way that it's passing in terms of feels like the beginning of this season was months and months and months ago when actually we can count it in weeks, and it's just crazy to think that we're stepping into another, it feels like eclipse season back around again, talking about it even though it's time, so yeah, be interesting to see where to from here.
Yeah, and especially because you and I, we talked about it a lot, being in the year nine, the year of Virgo, we're a year of Hermit, year of Virgo, and now we are just about to enter the 9 months of the year nine, and we are in the Virgo season, the Hermit season. So I really feel that this is where it's really sinking in for us, like what this means. This year of Hermit, year of nine, well, what the hell is happening? And I really
Yeah.
feel in this Virgo season, which is obviously the embodiment of the spirit. I think for many of us it's clicking. And the next lunation we have, which of course we're going to be talking about, the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. It's a full moon after all, and it is an eclipse. So let's see what illumination is going to come to us with regards to these energies. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and you just reminded me too, right after that, we have the 999 portal because this
exactly.
this is it. This is that month that we've been talking about carrying that frequency of 9 in triplicate because the day, the month, and the year all carrying that 9 frequency of culmination, graduation, and yet persevering and having that resiliency to keep going. So I'm curious to see which we've already pulled our cards, but we haven't looked yet, so we don't know what's coming up. But for sure, wondering which tarot cards came up for us to see if we have that 9 energy reflecting or how it's coming up. So yeah, you just mentioned that full moon. Let's see what came up from the Queen of the Moon Oracle for the lunations. I'll pull that one out first. Ah, we've got the card of action.
Oh wow, yeah, I've seen this
So,
card before.
yeah, what is that? Is that 15?
15, yeah.
Yeah, so it's bringing in that six. So, yeah, well, that's six energy is bringing in the balance, and it's like I say, it's like if you've had, a relatively loosey-goosey season, maybe where, if it's summer here, summer break, and the kids, and, we're having to deal with like setting the alarm again or coming back into schedules. And I can see my calendar very quickly filling in with like activities and things like it's starting to come in. It's go time. It's time for action, but it's sort of balancing out those areas like where we may have gotten a little lackadaisical, but now coming into taking steps to set up for the next, whatever that is. So that could be, some people have had their alarms going all summer. I haven't, and I and I enjoy that. But it's time. It's time for me to bring it back, you know. So whatever it is for you, but I feel like that's the thing about this dance, you know, and this energy, this action card coming in, that these perhaps these lunations are really illuminating or creating some awareness around shadow and things that are coming up for us to take action on of some type.
Yeah, because she has the full moon behind her, which, we could say lunar eclipse, the next lunation in a row. And it's interesting because before you pull this card, I was thinking, the 999 adds up to nine again. And nine in numerology is the number associated with Mars, which we know is the action. And Mars is in Libra, and Mars is in Libra until the end of Virgo season, because Mars will actually enter Scorpio only a few hours before Sun moves into Libra. So we'll officially have the equinox on the 22nd of September. So technically, Mars is moving into Scorpio with Sun on the 29 degrees of Virgo, right after the second eclipse, which is the second second eclipse and the second new moon in Virgo, which is the eclipse. So anyway, so it's interesting that it's the card of action. We say, okay, well, yeah, we are in this Virgo season. We know Virgo is about putting things into practical application. What did you learn? Yeah, back to school and stuff like that. So this is like, yeah, the school of life, the planet Earth. What did we learn? Let's put it into practice, because we know the Sun is going to conjunct South Node, oppose North Node. The eclipses are obviously happening on a North and a South Node in Virgo Pisces. And yeah, it's like, to me, she's like an action time, center stage, even though we just came out of Leo season. But Venus is in Leo, so Venus is our relationships, how we relate, to ourselves, reality. So yeah, so I feel this card perfectly represents the energies for this month, with the pivotal time of this year, of the year 9, year of Virgo, 999. Like you said, the 99 portal is actually a 999, and also Mars still being in the sign of Libra for the entire eclipse season, and Venus being the sign of Leo. So this card perfectly deciphers all of these energies to the T.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a dance. It's a dance. It can be delicate in, learning all the steps, finding your rhythm, and then the music changes. And to me, it's like, I'm thinking that nature is just such a as it reflects back to us, it's like clockwork when you're saying like, oh, okay, we can tell that the seasons are getting ready to change, because just like that, the trees start the subtle shifts. It's getting dark so much earlier here,
Yeah.
where we used to go for a walk, we have to make sure we go before dinner instead of after, all those little things that we may not even pay attention to, but we're adjusting our steps and we're taking action based on the way that it's changing, and I think, like you said, it's just a perfect card to really just show, and also to stay fluid, because as the music changes, or as, yes, that, learning those steps, finding your rhythm, you might step on some toes, you might have some missteps, all of those analogies to the dance and finding that flow and that rhythm. And, this is definitely going to be a pivotal month in setting that stage for the action that is this last, I've been saying, like in terms of school, it's like the final semester of 2025, and really thinking about all the things. Where do we want to focus our energy, our attention, our action for that last trimester, I guess, as we look
Yeah,
at October.
that's what I've been calling it, the final trimester, because if we're thinking about astrological year starting in March, with the Aries season, this is the final trimester of that. Who are you birthing? Who are you becoming? Especially then entering into the year 10, which, Wheel of Fortune, 0 and the 1, the Fool and the Magician. So what timelines are we choosing to manifest going forward, and what role will be playing in those timelines that we're choosing? And also another thing that the card reminds me of, like the gymnast during the Olympic Games, it's kind of, I don't know, somehow it clicks for me, like the maturation or the graduation, even though it's just at the beginning of the school year. But we know that Virgo naturally trines Capricorn, and we will end this trimester, the final trimester of the year with the Capricorn season which will be the graduation of the year 2025. So I really feel that this eclipse season and Virgo season is the pivotal time of the year, which again, she looks like pivots, like getting on these toes, tiptoes. It is the pivotal time of this year because it is really getting real what this year was about and where do you want to go from here. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that's definitely setting the tone for us. And then we're going to bring in our three tarot cards for our spread. Should I just bring them all out, you think, so we can look at the spread or just
Yeah,
do
why not? Yeah.
we'll see. So we have first the beginning of the month. So we've got Eight of Swords coming in, trapped in fear, but there's look at the illumination, the light coming in to those places where we may have an opportunity to expand perspectives. Ooh, very nice. Then we have Ace of Cups coming in. Love begins for the middle of the month. And then end of the month, we have a little Two of Swords, a little mental
Our
conflict.
Lee Harris card.
Yeah, that's our Lee Harris card, as we mentioned him again. He comes around again. So that's interesting because I always think of Eight of Swords and Two of Swords, sort of that type of energy of there being this, opportunity for expansion to mentally, also in our, beliefs and in our expression, our communication, that throat chakra stuff too. So. Hmm. So yeah, we start with that Eight of Swords, which is, trapped in fear, but there's these, prisons of our own making. There's perhaps beliefs that we've been holding or understandings that we've had, and this is perfect because this is what I'm just getting into now with the September Empowerment Pack. That's all about our schools of thought and the idea that, what we come to know about our reality is the collection of thoughts and beliefs that we hold, that we receive through a number of different ways in this, life, and whether we're talking about school and society and all the different things. So it's like this huge topic that was coming in. It was like nagging me all August to put together for September. So I have a lot of things planned there, but it's like, September coming in with these eclipses, with ways of us to see these prisons of our own making, the way that our own thoughts and beliefs and ideas about ourselves, about the world, about reality have actually built each bar of that perceived prison or whatever it is that we're in that is feeling very limiting, that we are trapped in, but actually very much like, the devil energy of, and that's a 15 too, this feeling of I can free myself at any time by shifting my perspective, my thoughts, my beliefs.
Yeah, because we know that when you master your mind, you technically, free yourself. So, but what is coming to me, especially based on the conversation we had prior to recording our personal conversation, which we're not going to disclose the details of, that we are finding ourselves, because also it is the Virgo season after all, which is the putting into practical application what we've learned and having the opportunity to adjust. And we know that this first Virgo new moon was square by Uranus. So there is and also Venus was in a square with Chiron. So there was an enormous amount of pressure for certain things to change. It was the 0 degree. You can, you have unlimited options. How are you going to change these things, right? So I feel that this is still like, after effects of this Virgo new moon, number one, we entering into September with, the beginning of the month. And I know for a lot of us, it's like, oh my God, shit is getting real, back to school, back to reality, back to whatever is happening in your life. Summer is over, we are just about to change seasons soon. So, many of us are in this mental, place where we like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Again, just thinking of my own personal situation. And like you said, there is an illumination going on. And it's interesting that the card right next to it's got the full moon. So it's like the illumination is coming from the full moon. So, yeah, we're talking about the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse, which is like, full moon on steroids. Obviously, not Virgo, sorry, Pisces. And we're talking about Pisces, which is the healing, the endings, what needs to culminate, the 999, the year of the nine. Obviously, as you mentioned, only 2 days. The eclipse is 2 days prior. 2 days prior. There's a 2 days difference between the eclipse and the 999 portal. So yeah, so we will have some illuminations with regards to, okay, what really needs to end now, like this is not serving, it's not working for us. So interestingly enough, when we have the mid of the month, which is the Ace of Cups, which is like the heart opening again, and I know for both you and I, we pull the Three of Swords for this week. You pull it in your weekly messages. People can find it on your sharecast and also your social media. I actually was pulling card for TikTok and I got the same card on Monday, the Three of Swords. And, we know that the heart can only break open. It can close afterwards, but it breaks open. So all these things that are going on are like encouraging us to engage this heart-centered consciousness, look at things from not just mental place, because then we're just going to keep recreating the same pattern, but look at it differently. And then it's, as you said, like at the end of the month, we have the Two of Swords, which is perfect because it's gonna be past the eclipse season, past the Mars moving to Scorpio, of course, but also it's gonna be the new season. It's gonna be equinox, past equinox, and the Sun in Libra by that point, which is all about balancing. And at the end of the day, we always say about the twos that it is a choice point. You can decide, and we know the Ace of Swords is actually it's kind of a neutral card, good, bad. It's up to you what thoughts come to your mind. In a sense, it's not, it's an ace. It's good. It's a new beginning. And then with the two, we decide, okay, well, how am I going to spin it? Where am I going to go with this way of thinking? So it's good that we have this 8, which is the infinity. The number of abundance. All these things are showing up for us to show us where we playing small, where we not being abundant, or where we think we are not being abundant or not able to live this life, of whatever dreams we have, with the Pisces, especially full lunar eclipse. And yeah, and then whatever is going to transpire with all of that, is going to give an opportunity to start feeling about the situation differently, I suppose. And then it will bring us back to this new choice point, which we know that they would say one of the hermetic principles is the universe is mental, that is created from the mind. So what thoughts, what mindsets are we going to choose to engage with to create in this final trimester of this year? So that's what's, coming to me with regards.
Yeah, exactly. That's the school of thought. It's a thought, um, a collective thought bubble that has created a reality. So the reality is built from our mental, the beliefs that we have. One of the things I was feeling when you said that was like, yeah, when we get to a crossroads or a choice point, it feels really connected, like I said, to the devil, like the 6 and the 15 energy that I was feeling, because it's
Yeah.
like not just it's a choice point for here moving forward, but it's an illumination on the choices that we've made up until this point that have created this prison of our own making. That, and again, we come to this in a place of love and compassion, which is what this is about. Bridging the two is to say, holding that love and compassion for the choices that you have made up to this point, that you made with the information that you had, or with the collective beliefs and thoughts that you were taught, that you learned. In terms of, it feels like this card reminds me of a lobotomy, like when they do like a procedure where they
Yeah,
get
yeah,
in.
yeah,
And it's almost like, and I guess I'm feeling like, full moon eclipse in Pisces. To what extent is there an illumination on delusion or things that were, sort of, it's just kind of like there's a new thought or belief coming in around reality and what makes reality and what has made reality to this point. But there's this love begins because it's much more connected with the heart and much more coming from a space of that centered consciousness than just the mental. Um, that and this is new, like I feel like this is seeding that then for
yeah.
that trimester, so that's why we have ones and twos, and down in this end as we get closer to the rest of the year, that there's this sense of something new that's coming in on the other side of these eclipses, and creating this new dance, even like this way that we can take action on co-creating a new belief system, a new dance, a new rhythm, but on the back of what has brought us here. So that's where there's an opportunity with this energy to bridge the two, not get too caught up in our head judging or shaming or criticizing what we've believed or how could we have believed that or what, any of those things. Because I feel like whatever illumination is coming in, whether it's collective or individual, we do have that tendency to judge, to judge ourselves, to judge others, to criticize, to have regret, to kind of, dwell on where we're coming from versus feeling, as our good friend Lee Harris would say, with the Z's, celebrate. Yes, that didn't work. And now I know, now I know. And it's the now knowing that I'm celebrating is this ability to choose then to liberate myself at any time from this prison. Because the good news is you built it. So that means you can do something to shift or change it by taking a new action or a new belief and building from there.
Yeah, like you said about the 6 and 15 as the devil card, or the Gemini, the choice, the lover's card. And Uranus is still in Gemini, and we know that Uranus is stationed in retrograde literally a day before the eclipse in Pisces. And also, this will be the first lunation with Saturn back in a sign of Pisces. Saturn is re-entering on the first of September, so literally a year after Pluto re-entered Capricorn for the final time. We have Saturn re-entering Pisces for the final time, maybe in some of our lifetimes, right? We know we're never going to experience, very likely, Uranus back in Gemini. For sure, none of us will ever experience Neptune back in Pisces, none of us. But Saturn in Pisces, we might, 27, 28 years from now, very likely. However, in this cycle we're talking about right here, right now, Saturn will be back in a sign of Pisces from the beginning of September. So, for the entire eclipse season going forward until Valentine's Day 2026. And yeah, this is what we enter in with the Eight of Swords. So in a sense, 8, it is the number of Saturn and Jupiter, and we have Jupiter in a sign of Cancer, so every single lunation is connected to Jupiter. Jupiter is expanding us through all these lunations right now, ruled by the moon in Cancer until the end of June 2026. So we have no choice. We have to grow. We have to grow and evolve, because Aquarius and Cancer, there is a quincunx, there is natural in conjunction between the two signs. So it's saying like, yeah, if you want to go beyond you been before, you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're becoming, because otherwise it will be replication of the past. So you just have to go, just have the experience and go through the process of death and rebirth of everything that is not that. It's either way you do quincunx, is the either Virgo or the Scorpio energy. So it's the lived life of the having experience, like you said, okay, you build this prison, it might turn up not to be what you thought it would be, but you built it so you can take it apart again. You can make a different choice, like the devil. You can remove the chains, make a new choice. The Gemini, the Uranus in Gemini retrograde, which is the acceleration. So we are going through this very quickly. So this is the thing which, it is not easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for Marissa. It's not easy for anyone to go through these things, because we have so much stuff that is not ours on a plate. And if you think you've done all your work, don't worry. Universe will give you more. There's more to be done with regards to the collective consciousness, especially with the nose in Virgo Pisces. However, we're going through this very quickly, like faster than ever before. Something what might have taken lifetimes, you can do it in one season. One season, you can do it so quickly. So that's what I mean. We have a lot of support available to us to tackle these things that have to be done with the 8, to build the new from the ashes of the past, the infinity symbol. Things are coming round and around, but in a middle point, from the point of the balance, from the 0 point, a whole new thing can be created, which is the ace. And we know that this future is to be built from the heart-centered consciousness, the water, right? The Ace of Cups. So that's what I mean. So whatever all of us are experiencing, and for most of us, it is challenging what we're going through, and it's not meant to be easy, because whoever became strong and resilient from easy life, I mean, maybe some people, but most not, so that's what I feel like. There is a lot of pressure on all of us to change, make adjustments, make improvements, and grow into a more expansive version of ourselves, which is our inherited life, to be sovereign and free to live our life from an authentic expression. So at the moment, everything that is not in alignment with that, as a consequence of the choices made in the past, not necessarily just yours, humanity choices, it's coming to show us this prison that, okay, well, this feels a bit too restrictive for me now. So yeah, like with the lobotomy, and it's funny you mentioned that because so many times me going through my Pluto square things these last 6 months, I literally was saying that I wish somebody would just give me lobotomy, just take my bloody ego mind away, please. It's torturing me. So it's funny you mentioned that because it literally is like the ego mind has to be trained. It has its purpose and meaning, and it is useful in some cases, but it cannot rule our life to support us in going where we haven't been before, because it can't do that. It's just built on a past, right? So that's what I feel like. It is the most pivotal time of the year right now, because we know where we came from and we have a full clarity about it, with all these 29 degrees in Pisces, because it's the totality. But at the same time, the new is not fully formed yet, but we have now we are in that, when you making the sword and it's still hot, it's
Mm.
already forming, you have all the stuff in place, you have the fire, the metal is, but it's not formed yet. So, or, when you're making a clay, you have the ingredients, but it's not formed yet. So we have all the, with the Virgo, the practical, the learning, the hero's journey, human's journey, hermit. We have everything we need right here. It's still Mercury rule, just like, Gemini is just like, what do you call it? Magician, right? The Mercury, the Gemini, Mercury, yeah, Gemini is lovers. So we have all this stuff, but it's not fully formed. It's still malleable. We are in a malleable, the mutable season. So we really are in that place where, with the Saturn moving back into Pisces, we understand now. Pluto is done with Capricorn. Saturn is almost done with Pisces. We understand what brought us to this point, but we cannot get out of it without taking responsibility and getting through it. There is no other way. So that's what I feel is the last card, the choice point. You choose what you're gonna do with all of this information that are being present to you.
Yeah. Wow, so many analogies and things were coming at me like this, just so much, because it really is like, now that it feels like time is moving so much quicker or condensed in some way, then it stands to reason then that these experiences, while they may move quickly, are very intense. They're concentrated. So it's like when you're talking about the process of forging steel, or I was also getting like when you're preparing a big meal or something, and it's spaced out over this long period of time, and we're peeling the potatoes and we're chopping this, but you come to that point where everything comes together, that everything's happening at once because you got to get it on the table. And once you start this, once the water starts boiling, then this starts happening and this starts happening. So, yeah, this is the natural rhythm of the dance. That, yes, when you talk about some of these aspects that have taken, decades and centuries to come together, and now they're happening, it's like this quickening at the end. There's this, everything coming together at once. And these are all relatively fast-moving energies. I mean, the action card speaks for itself. The two swords cards, of course, air, swords being some of the fastest energy in the tarot, but also this water is not stagnant. It's pouring from the cup into a flowing brook, so there's movement, it's happening, and it's all coming together, that water. And I was thinking too about that, is about pouring from, you can't pour from an empty cup. So there is this sense of taking this time for, you've done the research, you've been in this state of looking at all these different angles, but the Eight of Swords suggests opening up to see things that may be right there that we've been missing. And, endless school analogies of like, in a laboratory or with a hypothesis and running experiments, and we have ideas about how we think it's going to go, which is magician energy. I want to put these two things together and create some magic, but I don't know until I do it, till I take action, what was successful and what wasn't successful. And now with that information, it's almost like, now we've kind of peeled back a layer there with our lobotomy, that we can now we've now created space and given ourselves permission to learn something new and to say, okay, this belief system, this idea, this thought, whatever it was that, built up what now is feeling like a prison, now is feeling like I'm trapped in fear, that actually is informing me, is illuminating for me, what do I want to create next? Or what do I now understand that with that information that took some time for me to gather, but all of a sudden it's popping, all of a sudden it's happening, and I've got a little whiplash because I'm not accustomed to this pace, and I feel like, gosh, how much more can happen? It's like, we know this. It's like part of the reason why we could be talking for so long is just trying to cram everything in that's happened over a period of time into this smaller window. So I just feel that sense of expansion, but first the contraction. So if we're feeling contracted, if you're feeling that energy as we're entering into September, to really allow these energies to help to open up, to illuminate, to create some flow so that you have space then to create what's coming in next for you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just like applying it to my own personal situation. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see how this is gonna potentially play out. But yeah, but we know in the long run, it's all serving because with the Ace of Swords, it's showing us how this old way of thinking, being, and this old program, this old software our life is being run by, it is no longer working. It is now making us feel restricted. And with the Saturn in Pisces, and now post first stage of transiting the first early degrees of Aries, we know that there is a different way, like these new energies that have been flowing into our system that we've been tapping into, tuning into with the Neptune in Aries, Saturn in Aries, and Uranus in Gemini. We can't really necessarily name it or identify it as such, but we feel there's something else coming, there's something else available, and also the dissatisfaction of what is right now, which, like we said before, perhaps there is a situation in your life that's been coming around over and over and you just ignore it, brush it on the table, whatever, it's just like nuisance, but never mind. And now it's becoming unbearable, like, oh no, I have to deal with this, I have to, this, no, this is not gonna be flying anymore, part of my life going forward and stuff. So that's what I mean, we're becoming much more sensitive towards things that are out of alignment, that are not in resonance with our authentic expression going forward. So this Eight of Swords is literally reminding us of that.
Mm.
Where do I feel imprisoned by the small life that I created for myself in my own head? Because
Right.
I thought, well, this is all that can be. This is the only choice I have. Again, going back to that the Capricorn, the devil card, that, well, everybody else is doing it. What else choice I have? This is the only way to be. And now you feel like, oh, the walls are closing on me. But I mean, this guy, like, is he really even in prison? What is that? Some sticks. So it's like, yeah, but you can, and again, he's dressed in green. So it's all saying about the healing ourselves, healing our sense of unworthiness. Because why we even making a choices that are um, like lesser of what we desire? Because we don't think we're worthy, or we don't think we can do it, or we deserve it. All this Taurus thing, and then we have this Ace of Cups, which of course, Cups is water, so it's the Cancer card. And like you said, you cannot pour from an empty cup. So it's just showing us, like, where did I abandon myself? Didn't meet my own needs, depleted myself. And yeah, and then, it's interesting because the Eight of Swords, that is the Gemini card, and the Two of Swords, that is the Libra card. So we go back to that balance,
Mm.
seeing the imbalance in our life so we can make a new choice. So yeah, like I feel the beginning of the month, especially post Virgo New Moon number 10 degrees square by Uranus, Saturn moving back into Pisces, which might be a bit jarring after these 3-4 months of Saturn not being in Pisces. So new energy for us. And then eclipse build up and then eclipse. This might be a little bit of a, not the most comfortable time of the month, but I really feel that things will start falling into place after that, after the full moon lunar eclipse.
Yeah. I agree, and I feel that too, because as you were describing it, I was seeing this card almost like that there's a dam. Like, so all that water that's been getting poured in, but there's like this backlog, there's this backup of pressure, like we were saying, that when that dam releases and that flow, it's like this is what you've been this is what's been building, but we haven't seen it yet. So again, there's a belief that I can only see this and it's not the results that I expected or that I've been waiting for, or when's it going to happen? There's this sense of exasperation there that in and of itself creates a reality, when actually it's all just waiting to come break free, and I feel like that shift in belief, that shift in our thoughts and the mind is what is the catalyst for that dam breaking and that flow coming through. But it's all been building up. Like it's all there. We've been creating it all along, whether mindlessly or sort of, disconnected in a way. But I think that that's maybe what, and interesting as you say about the Two of Swords being Libra, and of course we move into equinox and Libra season then to step into again with those things being balanced. And ultimately it will be, but in order to get there, it illuminates what's out of balance, or it really shines a light, or maybe forces us in a way to see things differently than we have been, and somehow reconciling between those things, new belief systems, new understandings, and creating that as we step into the new on the other side.
And now I'm very happy we're gonna be pre-recording our October in few days because
I know, we don't have to wait.
I want to
I
know.
know. But yeah, like talk about being concentrated. It's this, and again, we're consciously then stepping into circumstances, situations, the time doesn't permit, whatever, and we're creating solutions. So we're going to be pre-recording in just a couple days, October already. So yeah, I'm happy for that to not have to wait too
I
long.
want to know what's gonna happen with October after these Two of Swords and in the
Right, which will be very interesting because this will be fresh on our mind as well. So that'll be cool for episode 42. But yeah, so
balance.
yeah, 6. Perfect. There we go. Happy Libra season. Wow. Well, I guess we should bring up then our final card to bring that in. We were going to use Sacred Destiny, which I love for an eclipse season. So that one we're going to pull here now with the energy that we've built in tuning into these cards and the stars to see what's coming in through Sacred Destiny to punctuate these messages for September.
Yeah, because people would say, that the eclipse season is like karmic, destined, however, but I know that you had a good explanation about that, the destiny is just your higher self being in charge or something, like where we think like, oh, I'm not in control, I don't know what's gonna happen. So it's just like,
And I love that because I was thinking that even when we were speaking before recording about, when you come into alignment with your higher self and they're more embodied, and the higher self is embodied, which is what we are endeavoring for here, is to, as we're moving through the learning, growing, healing, and expanding on our fool's journey, is coming into alignment and embodiment with our higher self to say, oh, I'm not even making the decisions anymore. My higher self is, but which is you. So you are. So that's the whole thing, is that what we perceive as karma or destiny or something that's out of our control, I had heard it suggested that that is actually the will of your highest self, so truthfully, it is still you behind the curtain, but an aspect of you that, again, you can't see from that limited perspective. So that as we embrace looking at everything with wonder and with curiosity, embracing coming full circle on the Fool again to say, this feels this way, or looks this way or that way, and it might be preferred or not preferred. But what is it coming up to show me? What is it teaching me? What information is there in there for me to mine so that I can put that into my next belief, my next understanding, because that is ever changing and evolving to get me closer to that higher self. So the idea of destiny, or this, karmic eclipses happening to us, is us in a way, is what that's saying.
it's the most expansive version of us that actually doesn't have the limitations of the ego mind. It's
Right. Imagine that. I would like a lobotomy for that, actually. So
yeah. I hear you because that's what I mean. It's like when I was going through my situations this summer and being tortured by my ego mind, I was like, oh my God, just please somebody just take it out.
Take it out. I know.
All right, what we got?
Okay. All right. We go from action to stand still.
Oh wow.
So that's an opposite energy coming in from action, and yet another, it's an expression of it. I think that's a roseate spoonbill bird, but we'll see because I recognize that shrimpy
Well,
color.
it makes sense because, if you're meant to be doing, then you have to be just being. But it's interesting because obviously the beginning of the month coming with this action card, and we are in Virgo season, which normally we would be saying about the earth, is more receptive. And then Virgo, not Virgo, Libra is the masculine sign. So it's more the action oriented. But actually, we know that everything is being kind of inverted at the moment because the real action has to be done from inside out. So yeah, so I feel like yeah, with the Libra season coming online at the end of the month, and I mean obviously this is overarching energy for the entire month. It's like the balance, where do you feel that this is a time where I have to be and where I have to actually action, but both are doing. It's just on different levels, right? Because the being is still doing, it's still in, so it's still a verb. You're still doing something, but sometimes the action has to be done within, and sometimes inspired action has to be done without. So
Sounds
understanding
like a
which one.
hermit.
Okay.
It sounds like hermit energy, right? I mean, this kind of has a hermit vibe in the cave, but yet whether you're shining your light from the inside out or going within, um, and stepping away, that is one aspect of the hermit, but there is that part of the lantern, and holding that light and that wisdom that in of itself is an action to take. You're taking an action in many ways, even by just standing still. It's so funny because it really does speak to this whole arc of what we were saying. And even as I just look at the sacred destiny, these are representing swamplands. So they're talking about the swamp being like a low-lying area with woody plants, shrubs, and trees where water collects and saturates the ground. And during rainy seasons, swamplands become overwhelmed with water. The edge of the swamp is often a quagmire of mud and silt, but an abundance of plants and swamp insects dwell there. So it's talking about the sticky mud and how it's often impossible to walk through swamplands. Um, but then there's great value in them because they act as natural flood control, as runoff can be temporarily stored in their basins. That's interesting because similar to like a dam, a basin where water gathers and is stagnant still. But then there's this lush vegetation then that comes in as a result of it and creates this fertile energy. So it's speaking to, and I think this is a perfect full circle because as we started talking about time, the fastest, longest, slowest summer ever, it's saying if it feels as if some areas of your life have slowed down or even come to a standstill, you are right. Something is not progressing. Even if it seems that things are flowing, look beneath the surface. Perhaps something is immovable. The first step to becoming unstuck is to acknowledge where you are. The soul loves the truth. In life, you can either say, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, or you can notice the weeds and begin pulling them out. Notice what isn't working in your life and then take slow, steady steps to unblock the barriers. In nature, when one is being sucked into mud, the worst thing to do is struggle. The best thing to do is slowly and carefully, one step at a time, extradite yourself. So that's really giving us that visual of that, I look at that heavy mud, like the dents of things happening in a concentrated way that can feel super heavy and all encompassing and overwhelming, and yet allow that to inform you, to teach you in terms of, I'm going to now move very conscientiously. Whatever movements I take are going to be deliberate. They're going to be something that I'm going within in order to choose how I'm going to handle whatever my environment is reflecting or what I'm experiencing. But definitely about if you're feeling stuck or like time's not flying or that it's happening so quickly that you can't keep up. I think that's, where that message was coming in for us.
Yeah, and it's really very, very well connected to actually all the cards, but especially the eight and the two of swords, where
Mm.
it's just like showing us, like where things became. And I know there is a card in Healing Waters from Rebecca Campbell, and I know that card came up at least two or three times, the stagnant waters, where we
Mm.
became stagnant, where our life became stagnant, where we are not really progressing or moving. And we can see that on a collective level, yeah, there have been lots of improvement, with regards to humanity, technology, all the rest of it. But certain things, certain patterns, certain dynamics, we've been regurgitating for thousands of years. And I mean, how much longer? Come on. So we can see where there is especially emotionally, right? Like there's a certain level of stagnancy, and we can see it micro, macro, it's happening in everybody's life. Like, what area of your life are like these muddy, stagnant waters, and also the muddy, it's not clear, things have to be stirred up to come to the surface. So again, with reference to these eclipses, there are a lot of things that, because it's the higher self in charge at this time of the year for everyone, so things are going to become very present and very in your face, for everyone, myself included, where we'll have the opportunity to acknowledge that, okay, well, this hasn't really been working for me, and I keep revisiting this, every year, every season, every Virgo season, every eclipse season, whatever is the repetition that you are observing, the pattern, right? And it's interesting that it's right next to that two of swords card, because it's saying like, well, you can choose to do nothing, and then more more of the same might come around next year, or a certain level of it, or you can choose to do something, which is up to you. But in order for this, I feel it's interesting because we're talking about muddy waters, and then you have this beautiful flowing water in the middle with the Ace of Cups. The emotions have to be felt, and this is what I also became very conscious and very present with this summer when I was going through my own things. That these emotions and these thoughts that are torturing us and are not comfortable, pleasant, desired, or in many cases even welcome, they are not ours, but they are in our body, in our experience, and they cannot just disappear. They won't just disappear, like they have to be transmuted, they have to be transformed, transmuted, transcended. But in order for us to do that, we have to be present with them, right? We have, just like they said, you have to acknowledge, you have to accept, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm feeling, this is my emotion, where is it coming from, what is it trying to teach me, why am I experiencing this? So as much as it might be unpleasant, discomfortable, why am I feeling this way, why I'm thinking this, there is something to be learned from that situation. So the first thing is obviously to accept it. Okay, I'm having this feeling, I'm having these thoughts, what is going on here, and go through that process, because the more we try to brush it under the carpet, distract ourselves and say, okay, this doesn't exist, I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear it, it is going to come back, it's going to come back around, which is why we as a humanity are dealing with a lot of the same things we've been dealing 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, thousands years ago, right? Some of the same dense emotions, because they have not yet been transformed, transcended, transmuted, transcended. And there is no judgment, because the spirit doesn't judge. It's like, it is what it is. But with regards to our personal experience as a human, spirit being incarnate in a human body, having this experience here on this planet, is this really the only choice we have? Is this really the only way we can be experiencing this life on this planet? So yeah, so I feel there is a lot of layers in these cards, but the density, the mucky water, the mud water, the stagnancy, and yeah, like you said at the beginning, where we've been maybe delusional about things, lying to ourselves, a lot of that will become illuminated with this eclipse season.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like so much of that. And as I was looking at this, it's like, when you look at it at first, it just kind of looks like this red section, but you can see his small self looking out, like those eyes that are looking
Yeah,
out from there. Like it literally is like that part of the mind, the gremlins in the mind that are like, that small self that's like peeking out at you with this limiting belief or idea about oneself or circumstances or anything that you've come to believe that is a collection of all those things that still there's a trace of that in there, a template or something that we're carrying that may not even be yours, that you thought you'd already extracted. There was something too about it, the word extricate, to extricate yourself and to, it's like, to me, it's like take tweezers and just pluck that, like and just pluck that ego mind, small self out, but actually it's had a purpose, it has served. And now, we had to become aware of the muck and the mud and these things, feel that in order for us to become aware of its presence being there, or the fact that it is out of alignment with actually, no, I don't believe that, or I don't think that's all that there is. So, it creates that sense of curiosity again to have that wonder of like, okay, now that I see this or I'm feeling it or I'm, perceiving of myself as being blocked or in some way limited by it,
mm,
now let me look around for a way out of here. And what does that look like? And what steps do I take? What action do I take to extricate myself from this particular belief or this particular reality, one step at a time? But I really do feel like once it gets going, it's just going to take on a life of its own and it's going to
yeah.
happen quickly. But it's that painfully slow, sometimes buildup that feels like just when we're feeling like we couldn't possibly take another, give me the lobotomy, something happens to shift that it starts moving or some clarity comes in that renders that old belief rather silly, and it's like once you have that awareness, once you see that, you're like, wow, I can't believe I ever. And the challenge then is to again embrace yourself with compassion and understanding and not have the regret or the sense of shame or criticism for what you believed, when you were, again in school, what we understood in kindergarten is very different than what we might be coming to understand when we're in university, so it's like again, like wherever we are, it's serving to help us to contextualize and understand and perceive of things, but yet there's a graduation happening, there's a culmination happening, and we're just on the precipice of that, so we're feeling those contractions ahead of that expansion.
Exactly. And I also feel that there is no coincidence that, that little gremlin in his head is red, because it's that foundation on which our life was created was based on survival, the base chakra, but in that very base level, just to survive, to survive, which at the moment, that's why I feel so much anger is coming out, because how much had to be suppressed and repressed with regards to our authentic expression, the yellow, the solar plexus, the I am, our courage to survive, so that's why I feel there is so much anger and obviously fire to create from, because our current foundation was predominantly built on survival. We just had to survive, we just had to get on with it, and we honor our ancestors for making that sacrifice, because they didn't really have the choice. Not in many cases they didn't. They had to survive. It was how the times were at the time, so that's why we're so privileged in a sense that we do have a choice. Okay, well, it might be not comfortable to make that choice, but we do have a choice, and we have a lot of resources and tools available to us. So, like that red, the base chakra, and again that cup, the Ace of Cup being in the middle, and we know that Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer. We are creating this whole new sense of identity. We also know we are creating this new human, right? The future human. Many channelers, including Lee Harris, are talking about this new, what we are becoming to here on the planet, with the Aquarian age, the new expression of humanity. So this new foundation and the old foundation and the new expression, they are not compatible. They are not compatible. So that's why everything that is not that is coming up. And at the same time, with this Jupiter in Cancer, it's forcing us to feel. to feel what we don't want to feel anymore, but that gives us the opportunity through contrast to then imagine, visualize, and feel what you do want to feel. You know, the manifestation process, that first we have to feel it and we have to know what it feels like to become it, because the physical manifestation is the last step. So that was another layer that came up to me with regards to this, you know, the mind and how our mind created the foundation, which is very survival and fear based at the moment, which that's, you know, anger is coming out because of that reason. And with this fresh clean water that's being poured from the cup, and we have the rainbow, you know, the rainbow after the storm, you know, the promise of the better times ahead and stuff like that. And it is in how you choosing to feel, you know, it's again on the other side of the choice of the Two of Swords. There are muddy waters and there is this opportunity to feel in a new way. But in order for us to know how we want to feel, we first have to feel the old way, because because we have to go through what we go through in order for these waters to be cleared and cleaned. And then when everything is still, like the standstill, where everything is then neutralized and balanced in the 0 point, so I'm no longer tortured by my mind and this all dense emotion, I'm just in this peace, then I can start like focusing on feeling and visualizing the other things, because it's very difficult to just sit here and visualize my best life and I have all these existential fears and problems and anger and anxiety going on in my head. You know, try to do that. I've tried, you know, like, oh yeah, let me visualize my best life, but you know, I have all these things going on in my base chakra, and it is not easy at all. We need to bring ourselves to that neutral point, because it's too much of a gap. So that's what I feel. It's that's what this month in some way will be offering, the extreme of that unwanted, but it's here, so we have to accept it. And at the same time, the opportunity to somehow learn to neutralize and then learn to raise the frequency above it, because that's not all there is. But in order to see a different choice, we need to understand what we're playing with and how and why, and how we can get it to that still point, quiet it.
Yeah, 100%. So many things there that could just take me in so many different trajectories of just even what you were saying about the root chakra, and really when you think about that in terms of humanity and understanding, yeah, like that's 100% what it was about, was base survival. So, you know, knowing that these many of these belief systems, the practices, the very way that we do things, even like school, were built on the realities of those times and what was going on then. And then with that, the comforts and the conveniences that they created, the potential, you know, so I'm brought full circle back to like, you know, if you're at a time where the most basic needs of survival is all you have time to think about or to even operate from, versus being bummed out that I have to set my alarm after a nice long wait and break of not setting my alarm. You're like, I get it. Like I can see. And that's where I feel this energy of the two hands from the past in this present moment and into the future come together to see the smallness of many of the perspectives and beliefs that we have and the opportunity to expand. But it's because of the muck and the density that has created the fertile ground that we can now plant from into the future. So this idea of this being this basin or this well of, you know, what's coming in as a result of all of that, and the potential that's there in the future, and becoming acutely aware of the roles that we play in determining what that might look like, you know, and that's about the beliefs and the ideas and the understanding. So I think that's, you know, definitely going to be a key theme that's running, you know, a current that's running as we finish out this year for sure and into 2026.
Yeah, because we're going to enter into 2026 with Jupiter retrograde. I mean, I think Jupiter is stationing in November, right? So it's quite late. It's Jupiter station, so it's going to be retrograde until about end of March, April next year. It's going to be quite a long time. Retrograde is at least till Aries season. So we're going to have another eclipse season then with Jupiter retrograde in 2026. And Jupiter is once again connected to every single lunation we are having until the end of June 2026. So this is all about the expansion through the processing of all of these emotions and all of these identities and roles that we all play for one another through thousands of years, through all these different reincarnations. So literally everything is being revisited, and we having the opportunity to heal it, clear it, transcend it, rise above it, and start from the Ace of Cups, from that clean slate. But and this is what I keep repeating and reminding to myself as well. We cannot get to the other side of it without getting through it. Nobody gets a free pass that, oh, I'm just going to not deal with this, like nobody gets a free pass, because to a certain extent, this collective imprint live in everyone. Everybody who carries this physical human body, maybe not so much the Pluto Capricorns and Pluto Aquariuses, the baby is now born, but prior to that, even Pluto Sagittarius is to a certain extent, because they are the in-between generation, the mutable sign. Everyone before Pluto Capricorn has a certain level of the human collective imprints from thousands of years ago. So everybody is dealing with this to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah, and that feels like a lot, because it is. But also, I think if that feels like really overwhelming, it's simplifying it here by streamlining us into this standstill, which is the Hermit. So that really, it's like we're coming down to the thesis. We have I can't stop with the school references, but it's like this whole year has been about that overarching theme of hermit energy. So it's fitting that as we get into this home stretch, that we would now be coming back to self, to go within in the standstill, to contribute in your own way, which brings us back to the can't pour from an empty cup. So you just begin with yourself and with your surrounding and your circumstances to look at the ways in which you may have been operating off of something that isn't, serving you, or that has been a delusion, or something that we start to look at those things in terms of dismantling or extricating piece by piece within ourself. And then just by shining your light and creating that momentum, you're already doing your part. So to try to take on all of it feels, like we can't possibly scale that wall. But I feel that there's a potential now for us to, this energy setting that tone for coming from that space and then stepping out.
Well, I just want to reiterate and clarify that what I really meant by that is that actually, rather than feeling overwhelmed by it, what I meant to say, because so many of us are holding this stuff, it's actually shared burden. So I didn't mean that, oh my God, now be overcome because you carrying stuff of 1,000 years old, but it's shared amongst all of us. So that's what I mean. It actually makes it easier, because we are in it together. So it's a burden, or it's a not even burden, but it's a thing that's shared. But just like you said with the hermit, it's important for us to go within and discern about, is this my responsibility? Is this something that is in my control to change? So this is a shared energy that we are all collectively being part of, sharing, tuning into, working through. But at the same time, not everything is your responsibility. So this is where we have to use the discernment, like, yes, it is on my plate, but I cannot go and stop the war. I cannot go and stop what Earth is doing. I cannot stop climate change, okay? So this is about the discernment, like, okay, there is enough on everyone's plate. So what is on my plate is my responsibility. There is something I can do about it, because this is my life, and I cannot change people. I cannot change the world. It's not for me to change. It's not for me to save. But this is where I really feel that we have to be very clear, the Two of Swords decide what is actually my responsibility and what I have a control over, because this is what will help with the overwhelm. You cannot fix the world, you cannot save the world, you cannot change the world. It's not yours to save, it's not yours to fix, it's not yours to control. There is collective contract going on, but your life is your life, and that's the one that you have a power to influence, especially when it comes to your own response to it. Again, cannot change people necessarily. You can, influence them, but not change them. So this is what I mean. So I don't feel it has to be overwhelming, because we all are going through this together. But at the same time, the discernment is important, and the responsibility. Take responsibility for what is your responsibility and let go of what it isn't. Because in many cases, for many of us, and I can see it in my own life, in my own environment, people are trying to get too involved in something that is not their business and they cannot do anything about. Whereas they have their own stuff that they could be dealing with and trying to correct, and they don't do it because it's easier to go, tampering with somebody else's business because it's not personal. It's not my life, right? It's easier to get upset about what's going on in television, politicians, the I don't know, the actors or whatever. It's so much easier, like distraction. So I feel this is again about the focus, discipline, and then you don't have to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, piece by piece.
So
So
step by step. Yeah.
step by step, back to basics.
That's
So
it.
that's where it brings us to laying down that groundwork for the next 3 months on the other side of September. So
Yeah, which we'll be covering in Stars and Cards 42, which we'll be pre-recording because of the situations that are going on in our personal life, especially mine.
but that's
Is
good.
there
So
anything, is there
yeah,
anything you want to say about the cards anymore, Marissa, before we close off with our
no,
personal
I think we've
views?
covered it. I think that gives us a lot to digest over this next month, and we'll be sitting and simmering with whatever comes up for October, which we'll then share in time for October. So stay tuned
Divine
for
time.
yeah, and then we'll see like the IG lives. We do them when we can. It's our intention to try to check in or at least, just kind of see where things are at. But we're gonna play it all, as we go. We'll be back for sure. You'll hear from us in October and take it from there.
Yeah, so with all that said, I'm Marissa. Before I share my news, please do share your news with regards to the September offerings.
Yeah, so we're going back to the school of thought. I have a big theme this month. I've been really up leveling my empowerment packs that come with integration exercises and resources. So I've created a workbook that goes along with it this month. So my empowerment pack is the best way for us to connect consistently throughout the month, where you receive those 3 readings for the beginning of the month and the 2 lunations and all those goodies. So that's all kicking off, along with a bunch of a la carte options. I have a seasonal favorite this month that'll be back, the equinox reading. So whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, I have a spread for you. And the Empowerment Sharecast. So September Empowerment Sharecast is kicking off. That's my free space on the Marco Polo app, where I offer weekly collective card pulls, and we'll do pick a cards and some other fun things for this eclipse and equinox season. So put all that below, and would love to connect.
Yeah, it sounds like a busy month for the growing. Oh.
Yeah. And how
Well,
about
and
you?
mine is the only opposite. The complete opposite. My month is not gonna be busy work-wise. It's gonna be busy on a personal front because I'm taking extended amount of time off, starting from September 4th until the end of October. I'm actually reuniting with my partner, and we're going for our honeymoon. And there are things happening in our personal lives, so we're actually taking this time off from the social media. So we will not be doing any recordings. We will not be doing any readings. So saying all of that, by the time this airs, probably I will not have much of offering with regards to my availability for offering readings. So if you do want, better to email me directly, and then I can see if I can do something for you. Otherwise, I'll be back to work at the end of October. And this is also the reason why me and Marissa are meeting again in September to pre-record the October stars and cards, because I am going to be going through a spiritual rebirth.
Wow, well, congratulations and enjoy and take that time and be present and all those good things. And it'll be November by the time we can check in on that. But yeah, that's great. So I'll get to talk to you again next week. So I
Exactly.
will also not know all the things, but very excited for you. So enjoy
Thank
that.
you. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. A bit of a longer episode, but I guess the eclipses need that. So I hope that we made them proud, and I wish everybody auspicious eclipse season. And yeah, and thank you, Marissa, because I know back to school, the schedule is tight. And yeah, and we'll see you all again soon.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.